Hey everybody, this is Tommy here with Outrider USA. Here today to give you some info on our latest and greatest fourth generation Alpha. This is a 2021-2022 model year. There have been a lot of changes for the fourth generation. It's an awesome machine, so we wanted to take some time to give you an overview of the machine as well as a little bit more in-depth look into some of the things that have changed and just the ins and outs of the Alpha. So overall, the Alpha was introduced to Outrider in around 2013 when we started. We took the original transition unit and we evolved it to develop a longer range version. And then from there in 2015, 2016, we evolved it again to have a full suspension chassis as the standard option. And then the transition became separate from there as the non-suspended version. So the Alpha, the overall idea behind the Alpha is that we designed it for riders that want to go as far as possible on a charge while maintaining as high of a speed as possible. So with that goal in mind, the priority was aerodynamics, an energy efficient motor, and then also as much battery power on board as possible. So with our early Alphas, we had a center frame spar that went down through the center of the machine, and that split our battery compartments into two sides. And with the 2016 model year, the whole machine changed as a totally new chassis with a all aluminum monocoque center section where this enclosure became the frame member. And that allowed all of the internal volume of that, almost all the internal volume, to be accessible for batteries as well as the onboard charging system, then all the power electronics. So because of that, the battery storage on the Alpha went up from 2 kilowatt hours max up to 4 kilowatt hours max in 2016, so it doubled. Now the Alpha's max battery capacity is about 4.8 kilowatt hours max, and that's because those battery packs themselves have gotten more energy dense. So along with the changes for increased range, as we went to full suspension in 2016, it made a massive change in the ride quality. What's unique about the Alpha is we didn't do the more common suspension solutions for the front end that would be common with recumbent trikes. Instead of doing an elastomer suspension that uses a rubber that's compressed for the damping element, we used a full dedicated A-arm suspension like you would get on a four-wheeler or a car. And then also we used a rear suspension shock that you would use for a mountain bike. So you've got full air suspension now, as you would expect on a mountain bike or on any kind of off-road vehicle where you want a really compliant ride with full adjustability. So with the air shocks, not only does it give you a great ride, but yes, you can also adjust it for different rider weights. You can tune the compression settings and you can tune the rebound all in that one shock. So it's a really versatile system. The Alpha, another part of the Alpha as far as our goals for the machine go, was to create a machine that was very comfortable to use over long distances. And so this seating position where you're not putting 100% of your body weight on the most sensitive part of your body, you're instead distributing it across your butt and back as you would be used to in a car or a truck. So that means you can spend the whole day in the seat and be comfortable at the end of the day, not be sore, and not develop any kind of sensitive skin or anything as you're riding day after day after day. We initially were building two-wheeled bikes, and we evolved to a three-wheel platform, not because we necessarily wanted a three-wheeled vehicle initially, but because we found that it was the best balance. It gave you the best stability in poor road conditions, whether that's ice or snow, and wet conditions. Also, it's the most aerodynamic position where you're reclined instead of having your chest in the wind. You get twice the braking power with two front wheels, and so your brakes aren't going to fade as much as they would on a upright bike where you're having all that braking power on that front disc. And the list kind of goes on. But also with this layout, a great thing is as you get into larger battery packs, you get improved center of gravity. So it keeps the center of gravity low, whereas a bicycle with a large battery pack like this, you have it high on the bike, and it makes the bike feel heavier in your hands as you're cornering. So the recumbent tadpole chassis like this has a lot of benefits as far as layout, aerodynamics, braking, comfort are concerned. So that's why the Alpha is designed with this layout, and we've never gone back, obviously, because it's very, very fun to ride, and you can do it for long distances. So that's the general idea behind the Alpha. Just getting into the details a little bit more with it. Its steering setup is indirect, so the steering is push and pull here. It's one of the most common questions we get is how do you steer it? So you push and pull in these handlebars like this, and rather than the handlebars being directly connected to the wheels, they're driving these push rods, and then these push rods go through the cam and out to the tie rods. So it's in some ways sort of like a rack and pinion system on a car, but a bit different, a bit simpler. But what that does for the rider is it makes the machine much less twitchy than what it would be if you had a direct system. Because with a direct system, every little adjustment on the handlebars means that you get that directly out of the wheel, so it can make the machine a little bit more darty, whereas an indirect system like this really slows down the steering. So that's how you steer the unit. Of course, this is an Alpha, so all of our Alphas are set up to be electric and pedal power. So you can ride this purely under pedal power, or you can ride it purely under electric power once you're rolling, or you can do both combined, which is how we typically ride, with pedal and electric power combined. So this unit, the Alpha, is pedal first to about 3 miles an hour, and then you can kick on the electric power. The electric power on the Alpha 5 Series, which is new for 2021, the maximum power is 5,000 watts on the motor and 45 miles per hour. The great thing with this system, since we've designed it with this mid-drive, is that the mid-drive motor is 94% efficient at its peak efficiency, and it maintains over 90% efficiency up to that 5,000 watt level. So with a lot of really powerful in-wheel hub motor systems that you see now that are typically using like a Crystalite hub motor, those big, heavy, 20, 25 pound motors, you'll often see, they're pretty dime a dozen now, are those 5,000 watt, 50 mile per hour rear wheel drive machines. But what you don't see is that those motors are typically operating at around 70 to 80, sometimes 85% efficiency, but typically 70 to 80% efficiency at that 5,000 watt level. So while it is pulling 5,000 watts out of the battery pack, by the time it goes through the motor, through the controller, and gets down to the rear wheel, you're ending up with about 75% of that power at the wheel. Whereas with this drive, it's a mid-drive and it's using an Astro motor, that motor is going to operate at 90% efficiency at those power levels, so you get a lot more power to the wheels. Also with this motor, just taking a closer look at this drive system, the motor, another advantage of this mid-drive system is that we're able to cool the motor actively. So it's got an exhaust fan, IP rated exhaust fan that's coming out of the back of the motor that's pulling cool air in through the front of the motor. Also, of course, the air that's coming over the vehicle as you're going down the road is going to naturally push into the front of this motor, but this fan is helping to suck it through, pull it over the heat sinks that are inside this housing. It's all aluminum housing, and then expel it out the back through this high power fan. So that's actually what you're going to hear whenever you kick on the key. Is you hear that fan. So that is a huge asset because, again, if you have an in-wheel motor, once you start getting to that thermal limit, there's nothing you can do to control that temperature other than let off the throttle and wait for it to cool down naturally. But with this fan, it can keep that motor cold at very high power levels for sustained periods of time. Also, not only the motor, but the gearbox itself is very unique. This gearbox is a German-made gearbox, and of course this motor is an American-made motor. This German gearbox is also very high precision and efficiency, averaging about 97 and 98% efficiency in these single stage alpha gearboxes. So not much power loss there at all. The belt drive system is a cog timing belt. It's a gate style tooth profile, and this is a carbon core belt. So what's really great about that is the belt is not going to stretch. So once it's set and everything's dialed in, there's going to be almost no tensioning of this belt drive system, and they're incredibly strong and long life. So it's a perfect setup for this alpha system, because versus a chain drive, the chain is much noisier, you need to oil it, it's going to stretch. This belt drive system, you're not going to have to deal with any of that. Also, while we're back here, you can see on this side, this Alpha has the optional Shimano Alphine Di2 system. So it's using that Shimano Alphine hub. So that's 11-speed, internally geared hub, and that's just for the pedal power. So the electric drive is a single speed. There's no multiple gears on the electric, just a single speed. And then the pedal power in the rear, you've got the option of the standard 9-speed rear cassette and derailleur, or you have the option of the Shimano Alphine 11-speed with the Di2 electronic shifting. So of course this is the hub here, that 11-speed hub, and you can tell that it's a Di2 hub because of that blue ring. And then this, what I'm pointing at here, is a little servo motor that shifts the gears in the hub. So the great thing about this is it's always going to shift precisely, so there's no tuning like you would get with a derailleur or with a manually operated internally geared hub. So that's awesome. It's shifted up here at the handlebar on this side. Also, this system is accessible with the whole unit off. You don't need the Outrider on to be able to shift gears. So you can see as I push buttons, you can see it's changing gears up to the 11 speeds. And then the other one's going to take it down to lower gears. So the great thing about that is if you're charging down the road and you're in a high gear, say you're in 11th gear, and you quickly come to a stop, and then you go to start again, this is going to allow you to dump gears and get down into first gear without being moving. You know, a normal derailleur system is going to require that you're rolling down the road to shift it into first gear. With this internally geared hub and electronic shifter, you don't have to be rolling to switch gears. So you're not going to get stuck in a gear like you would with a derailleur 9-speed system. So that's a huge benefit of this type of setup. Also, it's great because we have different shifting options. So if somebody has reduced hand dexterity, we have other shifters that are going to work well for someone that has a little less hand dexterity. So under the seat, you'll see here on the Alpha is the battery, and you probably have to catch it from, it's difficult to see from that side, but you can see this tubular battery here. That's the frame mounted Shimano Di2 battery. And so that's actually charged by a port up here on the display via USB. And that's got an extremely long life before it needs to be charged. So it works great. Like I say, we like to have that system separate from the main battery. That way you've always got the ability to shift gears even if your battery is fully discharged. So that's the Shimano Di2 system. There's a lot more to it, but just want to give you a brief overview on it here. While we're talking about the pedaling, you can see on this side over here, I'm going to walk you through another one of the options on the Alpha. This is the Schlump drive. This is our high-speed drive. So what the Schlump drive does, since we've got a high-speed machine and we've got a small rear wheel, in order for you to be able to pedal at high speed, say 45 miles an hour, you would need an enormous chain ring to be able to get the right gearing ratio so you could contribute power at 40 plus miles an hour. Well, that would be probably about an 80 tooth or a 90 tooth chain ring to be able to do that. So instead of that massive chainring, Schlumpf has developed a crankset drive that has a planetary gear set, much like our gearbox does for our motor. However, this is a 2-speed planetary, and that allows you in low gear to get the equivalent of whatever chainring you've got on there. So that's a 40 tooth on there now. So it's going to operate just as a 40 tooth would on any bike. But instead of a normal derailleur where you would bump it into a bigger ring, instead of shifting gears by hand, you actually shift by foot with this. You'll swing your heel in, and that engages that larger gear. And so this larger gear is 2.5 times speed increase versus a smaller gear. So that 40 tooth chainring becomes the equivalent of 40 times 2.5, which is a 100 tooth chainring. So you get the effectiveness of that massive chainring in this compact package. And then you would switch that back by bumping it back from the other side, and that'll get you back in that low gear. So you can see that it fixes. So right here you've got this outer ring, and you've got sort of the inner body here. And when you're in low, those stay in line, but as you switch it over, that outer ring is actually going to move faster than the inner ring. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it there well on that shot or not. I'm sorry, I said it incorrectly. This outer ring is going to move faster than the crankset. So you can see this in relation to the crankset is going to pass the crankset. So that shows you that it's moving faster than the crankset itself. So that's a little bit about the Schlumpf. That's an option. Otherwise, the standard setup for the crankset is a 40 tooth chainring. So as we move back on the bike a little bit further, the adjustment on the seat is something we get a lot of questions about. So there's just a 3mm Allen here that you can loosen up with a standard multi-tool like this, and then you'll be able to slide the seat forward and back. You need to loosen on both sides. Then you can tighten that back up with a multi-tool. Also in the back, there's a recline adjustment here. And that recline is going to allow you to get 7 different positions of recline. So as I pull these pins, you can see that's fully reclined there. You can step back and get a better view of what that looks like. And then on the uppermost position, that's the position. So lots of adjustment on the seat, the recline, also forward and back. And as you move it forward, it's naturally going to recline the seat more, and as you move it backward, it's naturally going to set the seat more upright. So you've kind of got that compounding effect depending on whether you want the unit to be more upright or you prefer for it to be more reclined. Okay, so that's your seat adjustment. Also, the rack has an adjustment. So as you move this seat up and down, of course your rack is going to tilt with the seat. So to adjust that, there's another 3mm shoulder bolt there on both sides, and then you can adjust it to flatten the rack down or to set it more upright depending on what you need. So that's what we call the rack leveling bolt there. Okay, so that's your rack adjustment and seat adjustment. Handlebars are also adjustable. You got a quick release here. You can probably see it better. Come in tight here. There's your quick release. And then the handlebars are able to come in and out depending on where you want your position, whether you want them wider or whether you want them narrower. Then they're able to come closer to you or further away. And also a lot of times for folks with disabilities that are transferring, they'll just lay the handlebar forward like that, or they'll lay it backward depending on what works better for them, just to get it out of the way. And you can tighten that down so you can kind of see how moving in from a wheelchair or a seat would be a lot easier with that folded down like that. And I always like to, when you're tightening back up again, just sight line down across the handlebars, and you can kind of get an idea of whether they're in line with one another. Pretty easy to see. So that's the adjustment on the handlebars, the seat and the rack. The boom itself up here, depending on how long your legs are, there's just two 6mm bolts right here. And you can see you've got one on each side there, and it only really takes a half a turn on those to get them loose, sometimes a full turn, just to get you enough to where you can bring that boom in and out. We've got it balanced up on the stand here. Okay, so you can kind of see there, you can tighten that down in that position or roll it back down, and once you find your spot, I suggest putting a little piece of tape on it, or you can take a little silver Sharpie or paint pen and make a mark on the boom here so you can always get back to your spot if you need to pack it up to travel in the car or something like that. Okay, so that is the main, those are the main adjustments for the rider. Generally also, you know, if you purchase a used or a new machine, we're going to actually set it up to get really close for your rider weight. And so generally the front shocks and the rear shocks are going to be set up to be roughly the same amount of pressure as your weight. So if you're a 170-pound rider, a good starting point is to put 170 pounds in the front shocks and also in the rear shocks, or in the rear shock, I should say. That's your adjustment for the suspension. Then we're going to ask you for your X seam, which is the measurement from the back of the seat here up to basically your heel or the ball of your foot, and that's going to give you the proper reach on your pedals. Okay, so that's set up for the Alpha. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about the technical specs and some of the performance items with the Alpha. So the standard brakes now on the Alpha are all 180mm hydraulic disc brakes from Magura. It's a single piston brake. You can see up here on the brake lever, you've got an adjustment for reach here on the front. So if you prefer to have it out further or in closer, you can adjust the reach there with a small torque screw. Braking is independent, so your right brake is going to control your right wheel, your left brake is going to control your left wheel, and so you're going to pull both of those equally to stop. Also, the cycle analyst display, I'm going to give you a little look into that. So your charge voltage is here. So that's going to show you your state of charge. So fully charged is close to 50 volts. Fully discharged is about 39 volts. But a good rule of thumb is that your operating range is 40 to 50 volts. Now, it's not necessarily linear. So 45 volts doesn't mean you're at half charge necessarily. The best bet is for you to take the unit out in your area and get a sense of what your average range is. But you'll find that as you get to the bottom of your range, you'll have voltages around 43, 44 volts sustained, and then it'll begin to drop a little bit from there. But the best bet is to take it out, try it in your neighborhood, and get a good sense for what your average riding range is, and then adjust to about 80% of that for your typical rides. Your power is down in the bottom left. That's your power output from the motor. Up on the top right, it's a scrolling display of motor temperature. Then you've got the distance traveled on this charge. And then you also have how many amp hours you've used in this charge. Each battery pack is about 25 amp hours. So 100 amp hours total available from the batteries with the 4-pack version, or 50 with 2 packs, or 75 with 3 packs. Your speed is down there in the bottom right. It's blinking at us right now because it won't allow you to apply throttle until you exceed about 3 miles per hour. So over here on the controls, the hand controls, the main thing you need to do after the key switch is on is to push this button, and that's going to arm the unit, and so now it's ready to ride. However, it's not going to go anywhere as you push this thumb throttle. It's not going to go anywhere until you're pedaling and moving. But you can see that you've got your throttle readout here on the bottom left. That shows your throttle position. So even though it senses my throttle input, it's not moving as a safety feature because we're not pedaling. And that's great if, in case there's kids around or whatever, the unit can be on, but it's not going to take off if somebody bumps into the throttle. So a couple kicks over on the pedals. And you can apply your throttle. Okay, so over on this side, you'll see that you got your key switch here, which is removable. All this is sealed, so all of it's IP rated. So you can remove your keys. Also, you've got an inlet here for the charging power. So I'll show you. This is a pretty typical kind of computer cord or utility cord that you're plugging in. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Of course, the other end is going into the wall. But the chargers on the 4th generation Alphas, one thing that's changed is the previous generations had a large plate right here on both sides, and that plate had a removable cap, and that was where you plug the charger in, or plug the charger cord into.
Yeah, second.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. You just got a little shot there. So that's all been eliminated, and one of the reasons we did that is we found that in tour operations, when lots of people were getting on and off the bikes and they were on the charger and off the charger, people would forget to put the caps back on, and those caps allowed air to be pulled through the enclosure to keep the charger cool. Since we implemented those chargers in 2016, the charger technology has improved a lot. It's a lot more efficient. So now the chargers are 95% efficient, and they don't need a fan to be able to stay cool. Instead, they're cooling directly into the shell, the aluminum shell of the enclosure. So that means that you don't need any cuts or holes in the enclosure to vent the charger through. And that also means that the unit's more efficient, more waterproof, and more reliable. So it's a huge improvement on these machines, and obviously it's dead silent, which is nice. One way you can tell it is charging, where it is in its state of charge, so you can turn the key switch on. You'll see on the display that it says negative 0.0 kilowatts, and that's because the battery is actually fully charged right now. But if it wasn't fully charged and you were charging, the max power going into the pack that you would see is 1.00 kilowatts, or 1,000 watts, because it's a 1,000 watt charger. And that's going to read negative on the display here. So that's how the charger works. If you have a single battery pack, it's about 1.2 kilowatt hours. And that 1.2 kilowatt hour pack, or 1,200 watt hour pack, it's going to take about 1 hour to charge with a 1,000 watt charger. If you add a second pack, it'll be about 2 hours. 3 packs is 3 hours, and 4 packs about 4 hours roughly. So it's a very quick charger, and it's on board, which is great, because if you're traveling with an e-bike long distance across the state or wherever, and you have a off-board charger that you're putting in your pannier bag, there's always a risk that it's going to get wet, or it's going to get stomped on, or going to get damaged in some way or lost. But with this onboard charger, obviously that's not an issue, and it's a lot easier to pack because all you're packing is the cord. And if you lose the cord or damage the cord, it's a cord that you can get at any Lowe's or Staples or any kind of utility store. So makes it nice and easy. And yeah, you just pull it straight out to remove it. And you've probably seen these before on computers and printers. It's a very common type of cable. So that's that. So also this one, as far as lighting is concerned, our units have an option for a headlight. This machine has a headlight upgrade. It has a Supernova M99 Pro headlight. And then the cool thing about this headlight is it's a switch on the handlebar integrated with the brake. So there's your high beam switch. When you turn the key on, this light takes a little bit to pre-charge, but after about 20 seconds, it will come on and it'll have daytime running lights, and then it'll have a low beam and high beam option. Also, the rear of this has the optional lighting kit. And so you can see it just has 4 marker lights. Another option is to get it set up with brake lights that are triggered by the handlebar brakes, and also turn signals are optional as well. So, very often our customers will go with a 360-degree lighted whip here in the center to get visibility on all sides. And of course you can do that in combination with these lights as well. I'll show you this light up here now that it's pre-charged. So that's the daytime running light, and then the high beam is there, and that's with the button that I just showed. You can toggle back and forth between those. So it's a very cool light.
Do it one more time and get the spread.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. So as far as suspension goes, I know we talked about it just briefly, but you got a single pivot rear suspension with about 5 inches of travel. Of course, this is your single pivot. It's a very robust and reliable system. And here's the shock. And it's just a great system. It really works well. And with 5 inches of travel, you've got a lot of take up for rough roads and railroad tracks at speed. Then up front, we've got the independent suspension, A-arm style, and it's about 3.5 inches of travel. Also, this design uses a sway bar like you'd have in a car or SUV or side-by-side. And so that means that as you're cornering, you're not going to get nearly as much sway and body roll in the corner as you would on a system that didn't have a sway bar. So that's very unique to our system, is that sway bar. It's a great add for high-speed cornering. So also on the front end, there's a lot going on with these units, but there's an option for a parking brake that would go here. This unit doesn't have that option, but for machines that do, you can see here's the separate parking brake mount. And the reason we do that, just like you'd have on a car, you don't want really to have sustained pressure in the hydraulic system for your parking brake. So we have a mechanical Avid BB7 parking brake because you can leave that cable locked for long periods of time without any issue. Whereas if you try to keep pressure in the lines of the hydraulic brake for long periods of time, it can do damage to the brake. So one of the most impressive things about the Alpha, of course, is the range. We've talked about that. Here's a great representation of it so you can kind of see what it is at different speeds. So at 15 miles per hour with a 185-pound rider, pedaling at about 100 watts output, which is pretty average light output on rolling asphalt, 307 miles of range at that speed. At 20 miles an hour, 203 miles of range. At 25 miles an hour, 145 miles. 30 miles an hour, 117. 35, 88 miles of range. 40 miles per hour, 70 miles of range. 45 miles an hour, 63 miles of range, and at 50 miles an hour, 56 miles of range. And that's with our biggest battery pack, our 440, which is now our 540, with that biggest battery pack, which is 4 of those lithium packs. So lots of distance. Also, another fun tidbit with our motor, they've recently been updated for 2021 as well. Our older motors were an 8-pole motor, and our newer motors are 10-pole motors. So they've got a little better low speed characteristics, more torque in the low range, more resolution, and they've got a kind of a raspier, meaner sound to them, which is maybe what we like about them the most. They sound awesome. You'll see a little bit of that in the riding footage coming up. The enclosures on the Alphas and all of our full suspension bikes, now we're doing pretty much any color you want at no additional charge. So this one is a really beautiful green color. We've done a lot of really fantastic colors lately, as our customers have picked the colors they like best from powderbythepound.com, powderbythepound.com, and that covers the enclosure. And then wrinkle black is what the rest of the frame components get. Really cool wrinkle finish that adds some really nice texture to the machine. If you can see under the enclosure, it's pretty fascinating to see. So now in 4th gen machines, rather than one continuous lid, we've split it into 2 aluminum lids. So this front lid covers the 4 battery bays. And then this rear lid covers all the electronics, cartridge and the charger. So if you need access to just the electronic stuff to do an upgrade or change anything, you can just remove this rear cover. And if you want to upgrade batteries or change anything about your batteries, you remove the front cover. Also, we still have the front bash guard standard. So if you take a digger into any big old rocks or anything nasty out there on the road, that front edge is protected. So that's a great feature to protect the front end. Another cool feature about the Alphas and all of our full suspension machines is with the belt drive system, if you need to remove the rear wheel or do any kind of adjustments, the tool is built onto the rear swing arm. So there's a couple thumb screws here, and if you remove those, got a spanner wrench here that's built into it. Then you've also got a hex wrench here. So coming back to the rear wheel, you can use that to loosen the bolt. And then you use the spanner to adjust this cam for your belt tension. So you can loosen it or tighten it by turning it clockwise. Once it's set, use that built-in wrench to tighten it back down, and then it goes back in the same position it came from with the spanner in. It fits into those holes. So that's a really cool feature to have that tool with you. Coming around the other side, these holes, we've designed things to be as modular as possible, so that gives you a ton of mounting options. Some of the things that will typically be mounted to these holes are seat belts or chest belt, or you can also mount water bottles to them. You can also mount water bottles up here to the center boom. We've got a couple tapped holes there so you can mount. We've also got another mounting hole up here for either a headlight or an adjustable arm to mount a GoPro. And you can do the same thing with this mounting boss that's on the front. If you want to do an articulating arm to your smartphone for GPS, or alternatively you can mount that on the handlebar if that's preferred. So those are some of the mounting accessories for the Alpha. Another cool feature with the units is that, again, everything is as modular as possible. So we have this doghouse box where all of our wires go into the unit. And the nice thing is that all those connectors are pluggable. So, you know, with some machines you would have everything kind of bundled up and wrapped into one wiring harness that is just permanently all connected together and you can't get it apart if you want to change anything. Well, this is different. You can remove connections individually if you want to change out a light or change your throttle or change your push button assembly or whatever you might want to change. It's made to be as modular as possible. We also, in a couple places, we have a couple additional connectors Down here is an additional XT30 connector that's tucked away in case you would want to add any kind of rear lighting that would run off of 12 volts or any other 12 volt accessory. Coming around the other side, one of the big changes that we've made for the 4th generation as well is we've simplified our accessory box mounting. This unit doesn't have an accessory box, but it would go right here in this area, and that accessory box is going to allow you to do USB charging, also to run 12 volt accessories, and we'll give you a little shot of that unit here in a second to show you some of the different features of that. Okay, so another great option with the Alpha is the Arkel pannier bags. These are waterproof. It comes as a pair. Very easy to install. So you're going to catch this hook down on the bottom of the rack there, and you're going to pull up and latch it on the top, just like that. And then reverse order to remove. These bags are great. It's just a roll-up design. This one's seen some action. And load everything from the top. You got a separate divided sleeve in there, and it really works great. Nice and light and waterproof. The top of the rack here, the shelf, is a great place for trunk bags. A real common thing that a lot of guys will do is put a smaller bag here that they can put any kind of cell phone, keys, wallet, stuff you want to access quickly. Or you can do a cool case, which is like a small soft cooler. And that's nice because you can put a bladder up there, like a Camelback bladder, and then run the tube up into your helmet, so you'll have cold water to sip on all day long if you're spending the entire day on the road. Okay, so the rear fender on the Alpha is standard. Front fenders are an option, but they don't come standard, and the reason for that is a lot of times folks want to be able to put their hands on the tires to roll the bike backwards, or they'll do it with their feet on the ground. And also, it's a nice spot to put your weight on whenever you're getting on the machine or when you're getting back off of the machine. Okay, so another great feature of the 4th generation Alpha is instead of the electronics panel loading in from the side of the machine, it loads from the bottom, and it's now all self-contained in this electronics cartridge. And of course, this is just an empty one without any electronics in it, but the idea is it comes in and goes in from the bottom, and all of the power connections and all the signal connections are quickly unpluggable. And so if you're doing an upgrade on your machine, or if you need any service done and you're in Timbuktu, you can mail this cartridge to us for us to do service, or in an emergency, if you needed one, we could expedite it to you to replace it in your machine. So that's kind of part of our goal, to be as modular as possible, to be able to create machines that are more future-proof for our customers. So as upgrades and changes happen down the road, we want to create a way for you to update your machine. And this is a great way to do it, rather than us engineering it into basically a molten goo of epoxy that permanently makes your whole unit not serviceable. So this is part of our goal, to make sure that you can service your machine and that it's going to last you for a really, really long time. Another option, as far as electronics go, is the electronics accessory package. So as I mentioned a bit, this in the past was attached with about 20 screws to the top of the enclosure. Now it's attached with just 4 screws. It's a lot easier to install after the fact. If you didn't want it as an option, then you decide later on that you do, you can upgrade. So it goes in that position, and then this connection goes over and connects to the doghouse. And what this package can do is, there are a few different things depending on what you want, but the standard option gives you an on-off switch that controls this unit, and that controls your power output to the twin USB ports for high-speed USB charging, whether that's a phone or any, a tablet or any kind of USB powered device. And then also you've got a 12 volt port in the back, so you can run basically anything that you would want to run that would normally run off of a cigarette jack in a car. So that could be a small inverter up to about 240 watts if you wanted to run anything that would plug into the wall normally, as you would in a car. In addition to that, There are two other ports that are optional, and this smaller port, you can just see the knockouts here for it, but we'd knock that out and install a 3-pin. That'd be for solar. If you want to be able to charge your machine with solar power, we add a solar charge controller inside this box, and then this is your inlet for your solar panel, up to 400 watts of solar power. So you could charge your unit with the sun. Then this other port here is a 48 volt out port. That's power straight from our battery pack, and what that allows you to do is run higher power accessories up to about 1500 watts maximum. So the most common use for that port would be if you wanted to run a high power inverter. So if you wanted to be able to run anything that you could run off of a normal outlet on your Outrider, you can do that with a 1500 watt inverter, and that means you could run, you know, a hair dryer or a blender, or charge different tools or power equipment, or just about anything you want. So that would allow your Outrider to be able to be used as sort of a portable power station, large battery pack with these outlets. So that's an option to be added on, or you can get it right from the start. Okay, so for the 4th generation, we've also improved the weight capacity. So now it can handle 350 pounds comfortably. Also, the maximum rider height is about 6'9". Minimum rider height is about 5 feet even. There are some fairly straightforward adjustments that can be made to support someone outside of that range. Most of it would be around a custom boom length. But yeah, about 5 foot to 6'9" and 350 pounds max. Also, max carrying capacity for the racks is about 60 pounds total. If you got to carry more than that, then we can certainly talk about there's a couple changes we can do to be able to support more weight for you. Trailers are also an option. You can do a single-sided trailer like the Burleys, or you could do a heavy-duty trailer like the Surly trailers, with a little bit of customization to be able to run the Surly. Okay, so another option for the Alpha is an enclosure. We don't offer full enclosures for the Alpha, but we offer partial enclosures. So one of the more common options is the Veltop enclosure, which mounts off of the rear rack and off of the front boom. And that gives you a partial clear front covering, and then it gives you a cover over the top that it's a soft top, and it keeps you out of the rain with roll down sides. Alternatively, we also offer wind wrap front fairings if you just want to stay out of the wind, or you want to improve the vehicle aerodynamics slightly. All right, so dimensions on the Alpha. The overall length is going to vary depending on the position of the boom, which is right here. Depending on how far you have that out or in, that's going to affect the overall length. So the length that we typically share with folks is the length from the back edge of the tire here to the front edge of the tire here, and that length is 76 inches. So that way, you know, if you remove the boom, which is easy, just 2 bolts, slide the chain off, set the boom on the seat, then you know that your dimension here that won't change is 76 inches on the length. As far as the width goes, outside to outside width at the widest part of the machine is 33 inches. So that'll fit through any kind of exterior door. You can actually get it a bit narrower if needed by cutting the wheels to full turn and then coming through the door in that direction, as that'll bring that overall width together a little bit narrower. So 33 inches on that overall width. From the ground to the top of the seat, if the seat is all the way down, which is down there, that dimension there is 29 inches. So for most individuals that are putting this in an SUV or a van, and even some kind of hatchbacks like a Subaru Outback or Subaru Forester, this is going to fit through most of those openings in the back of the vehicle. We've designed in the 4th generation for this upper section of the seat to be shorter so that that would fit. Of course, if you have a headrest, that is going to add some height. These can be loosened up and pivoted down to get out of the way. Still going to add a 1/2 inch or so to the overall height. But but 29 inches there if the seat's fully reclined and moved forward just as far as it can go. The track width, which is the width from center to center of the front tires, is 30.5 inches. That's important if you want to carry it on a carrier on the back of a car or back of a truck or SUV, so you can know how wide to have those tracks. The overall wheelbase on it, which is the dimension from the center of this front wheel and the contact patch of the tire to the center of the back contact patch, that overall length is 56 inches. So that's the primary dimensions of the machine. If you do have the boom in, and the boom's in the most inward position like it is right now, that's going to add from the edge of this tire to the edge of this crankset, that's going to add 10 inches to the overall length.
Pause real fast. Can we see that again? You're
Yeah.
off camera here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So as far as the overall length is concerned, 76 inches overall length to the front edge of this tire. But if you have the boom in the machine, you have it in its innermost position, pushed the whole way in, it adds 10 inches here to the overall length from the front edge of this tire to here. So that increases your overall length from 76 inches to 86 inches. So 86 inches is the shortest overall length you can get with the boom in, and also the boom the whole way telescoped in to the Outrider. So 86 inches there with the boom on, and 76 inches with the boom off.
Cool.
Of course, it will get a bit longer than that if you've got your boom out further. That'll increase, obviously, the overall length of the machine more. Those are the general overall dimensions. And as I mentioned earlier, 350 pounds max on the machine, about a 6'9" rider max, and a 5-foot rider minimum. Okay, so now that you know everything about it, please check out the rest of the video. It's going to be a lot more exciting. You can see the Alpha stretching its legs, and check out, we're going to have a lot more exciting content coming with the Alpha. Hope you enjoy the video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.